When Kiki and I started dating, she made sure I was present at all family celebrations. At that time, her grandparents were still alive and ruled the household. Kiki's father had two older brothers and one younger sister. Kiki's mother was an only child, so her parents loved Kiki and her brother very much. These gatherings always included many aunts, uncles, brothers, sisters, and other relatives. Since Kiki seemed to be in love with me, all her relatives looked at me closely. Most of them were friendly, but some were skeptical. "What do you do, Ryan?" Kiki's Uncle John asked when about a dozen adults gathered around one of the tables with food. "I'm a dispatcher assistant. I help plan truck routes." None of them were impressed, but I acted confident and said it was a good job. I really did think so. I couldn't afford college, and no one was going to pay for it for me. This job had a future, even though I didn't have a degree. Well, I was the only one who didn't have that precious piece of paper, so Kiki listened while I deliberately distracted her. Apparently, Kiki didn't think much of their concerns, and I passed the test. Kiki and I got married that same year. When the trucking company I worked for went bankrupt shortly after our wedding, we had to pay for health insurance. Being relatively healthy, we decided to limit ourselves to insurance for serious illnesses. Kiki's father's brother, Uncle Ted, was the family doctor. He agreed not to charge us most of his fees, and Kiki and I became his patients. According to Ted, we lived in a big city. His practice was in a town of about 6,000 people, 30 miles away. Our city was rapidly approaching 50,000 residents. Ted's office was his alone. He didn't believe in teamwork. I don't know the exact number, but he had at least a few people working for him. During the first 2 years of our marriage, I think I saw Ted once, when I had strep throat. I got a shot of penicillin in my butt. There were a few more visits for checkups and blood tests, but nothing serious. Kiki saw Ted a few times before she got pregnant. Ted didn't want to deliver the baby, saying that malpractice insurance was too expensive. Instead, he recommended a specialist in our town. We agreed to wait to start a family, but for some reason, Kiki's birth control pills weren't working. Uncle Ted dismissed them, saying they weren't reliable. So Nathan, my eldest son, was born just after our 3rd anniversary. 2 years later, I was holding Ginger in my arms. I think that female doctor did a very good job. To be honest, if Kiki liked her, then so did I. A man can't understand what it means to be pregnant and give birth to a child. The 60-mile round trips to see Tata with sick children didn't last long. We started seeing doctors closer to home in case of emergencies. Life was good. I moved up the career ladder and now manage 5 people. Kiki returned to work part-time when Ginger started kindergarten. My job included health insurance, which helped reduce expenses significantly. Although we stopped going to Tata, his death from a heart attack was still sad. At the gathering after the funeral, Tata's widow handed me several envelopes. "These are copies of your medical records from Tata's practice. We wanted all of his patients to have their records. Don't worry, I didn't look at them." The envelopes were sealed, quite securely. I hadn't been in Tata's office in several years, at least one, but I had taken the kids there a few times. I just hadn't been sick. Kiki's envelope was much thicker because she still went to him for annual checkups and such. Ginger and Nathan's envelopes were thin because they had only been to him a few times. So as not to lose them, I went out and put them in the trunk of our car. A few days later, I opened the trunk to put some boxes of work-related items in there. After putting the boxes away, I brought the envelopes back into the house. I put mine in my briefcase and took the other 3 to the kitchen. "Hey, Kiki, the office asked me to make sure everyone has a copy of their medical records," I said, handing Kiki and the kids their envelopes. Kiki's reaction was not at all what I expected. I really couldn't understand what was going on. Was she worried? That didn't make sense. I repeated what I had been told. Don't worry, I didn't look inside. Another strange reaction. Kiki stared at the envelopes as if I had handed her a grenade with the pin pulled out. She counted the envelopes several times. Plucking up her courage, she counted them again and asked, "Did you get yours too?" Yes, I did. Dinner smells delicious. What are you making? Yes, roast potatoes and salad. It'll be ready in about 30 minutes. I have a home office. Since my computer contains confidential information, I always keep my office door closed. That also meant I was responsible for keeping it tidy. Such is life. I spent the next 20 minutes answering emails. When I sat down at the table, Kiki's eyes were red. Ginger and Nathan had to be pulled away from the TV. "Why are you crying?" She wiped her face with her hand and replied, "I'm just sad that Ted died so suddenly and so young." I was struck again by how differently Kiki was behaving. She hadn't shed a tear at his funeral. I guess death affects people differently. I'm not a neat freak, especially in my office, but I know where everything is. About a week later, I began to suspect that someone had been in my office because things were out of place. Maybe Nathan or Ginger had made a mess and Kiki had cleaned up after them. Kiki denied knowing anything about it. Perhaps I didn't know my home office as well as I thought I did. Throughout the week, Kiki was in a great mood, and it seemed like we were having sex more often. For the next 6 months, everything went smoothly. As the kids got older, we became friends with the parents of kids who were involved in the same activities as our kids: dance, gymnastics, softball, baseball, basketball, and I'm sure I missed more than a few practices. I was the head coach or assistant coach for many of these sports. Kiki became friends with half a dozen women, and we started getting together every couple of months when our schedules allowed. This gathering was at Ben and Jill's house. I really wanted to decline because I had a bad headache, and on top of that, I had skin cancer removed from my neck. Sitting in a recliner seemed much more relaxing than a party. Kiki promised me a special surprise if we went. So we went. Yeah, well, my little head still makes some decisions. Our relationship had been strained for years. When it became known that I wasn't feeling well, one of my parents, Rick, offered me some cannabis gum. "It'll relax you a little. It has THC in it." Rick is one of those guys who weighs 200 pounds more than he should, wears earrings like his favorite action hero, and is about to lose his house to the mortgage. Nevertheless, he is a self-proclaimed expert on just about everything. He explained to me that edible marijuana first goes into your stomach, then to your liver, and only then into your bloodstream and brain. The liver converts the THC into a more potent form, which, when combined with the THC from the original product, enhances the high. Since it's legal in our state, I tried one. Everyone should try it once in their life. Since I was a first-timer, the effect was strong and fast. I found a bedroom and stared at the ceiling, which turned into images that only my imagination could create. Any pain I had felt was long gone. Was the music real or in my head? The clock showed that I had been lying there for over an hour when I fell out of bed and crawled to the bathroom. After emptying my bladder, I crawled back to the bed. But this time I pressed myself against the carpet. Finally, I made it out of the bedroom. The banisters on the stairs looked like wild grass swaying in the wind. It was too difficult, as I was sure they shouldn't sway like that, so I sat down on the top step. I heard the distinctive sounds of women talking. From time to time, there was laughter, like some women make. When I concentrated, I realized they were talking about sex, about ecstasy, foreplay, where they like to be kissed. I guess I never appreciated what women talk about. An unfamiliar voice spoke enthusiastically about how she loved being brought to ecstasy. Others joined in, and then I heard Kiki's voice. "I haven't done this in so long. Ryan used to do it all the time, but he died 8 years ago." Well, I was crucified as an indifferent lover and a bad husband. Grab a rope and find a tree, build a gallows, sharpen the guillotine, death to the selfish husband. How could I? What a scoundrel. Under normal circumstances, I probably wouldn't have paid any attention to it, but I felt no pain and couldn't think clearly. I was definitely high. The girls heard me coming down the stairs and fell silent as crickets. "Are you feeling better?" my wife asked. "Yes and no. I came to defend my honor. It's been 10 years. Kiki looked confused. What? What do you mean, 10 years? I gave you mini-sex. Don't make me look like a bad guy. Tell them why. Kiki's eyes widened. She looked like one of the children in Margaret Keane's paintings. Ryan, please, not here. Come on, Kiki. You shared. Let me share and take care of you. Girls, Kiki gave me an STD. It happened before we had kids, but I only found out 10 years ago, 7 years after it happened. No, I didn't know who was there that day. Hell, for all I know, she could have been satisfying your husbands on the side. Every time I see her flirting with a guy, I wonder if she's sleeping with him. When you've been cheated on your whole life, all kinds of scenarios run through your head. No, that's not true. Kiki buried her head in her hands. She cried while I spoke. The horror on the ladies' faces told me they were still planning my quick and painful execution. Jill, the lady of the house, scolded me. Ryan, I think that's enough. Come on, Jill, I'm not lying. 17 years ago, she cheated on me. 17 years ago, she started lying. 17 years ago, she decided to cheat on me. She had 17 years to tell me the truth. But she didn't. 17 years. We stayed together because in a divorce, my wife would have all the cards. Just in case, I had my kids' DNA tested. They're mine. Anyway, I'm taking a risk by having sex without a condom, but there's no way in hell I'm going to dinner at the YMCA. All the women stared at me, but I shrugged it off with a smirk. God, it felt good to finally get it off my chest. For 10 years, I had endured and looked for signs of infidelity. I can't say I ever thought Kiki was still cheating on me, but then again, I missed all the signs 17 years ago, so I'm not in a position to talk. Thanks for letting me get that off my chest. I'll leave you ladies to discuss the highlights and berate your husbands, I said, and followed the music into the backyard, where there was no music. Damn, I'm still high. 10 years ago. The envelope with my medical records from Tata sat in my briefcase for several days before I transferred it to my inbox folder. It ended up on the floor next to the folder because I always had something more urgent to do. Besides, there couldn't be any surprises, right? 6 months passed before I decided to open it. I sat in my office waiting for a response and listened to the recorded message about how much they valued my cooperation. Every minute I was reminded how important I was to them. This gave me time to tidy up my desk and empty my mailbox. When I got to the envelope from Tad, I opened it casually. Each page had 2 or 3 doctor's appointments on it. Pretty boring information, and sometimes his handwriting was hard to read. But then I saw the following. Prescribed doxycycline. Take 2 capsules with breakfast and dinner every day for a week. For chlamydia. I was confused. I thought chlamydia was a sexually transmitted disease. I've never had an STD, and I haven't done anything that would cause me to worry about getting one. So I looked it up online. It is indeed a sexually transmitted disease. The problem is, I've never been told I have chlamydia. Looking at the date, I saw that it was a month after our 2nd anniversary, before we had children. Looking through Tada's records, I realized that I hadn't been to his office. All my visits to the office were for weight and blood pressure checks. Then some memories came back to me. I remembered getting a call from his office. They said Kiki had an infection and were prescribing me medication just in case. I was too busy with work to think about it. A week later, I finished the pills, even though I never felt sick. My boiling rage was interrupted when my call was finally answered. Although I was a little distracted, I solved the work problem. Then I asked my secretary not to pass any calls to me. Returning to my internet search, I learned all about the symptoms and course of the disease. Kiki had been infected around the day of our 2nd anniversary, give or take a week. The cruise wasn't very interesting. We just hung out in the Gulf of Mexico and drank a lot. Kiki danced a lot, and we had great sex the whole time. More memories reminded me that the great sex had resumed around the same time I took those pills. A month of pretty good sex, which resulted in Kiki getting pregnant with Nathan. We weren't planning on having a family, But I didn't question why the birth control pills weren't working. Kiki thought it was because of the medication she was taking. The internet confirmed that doxycycline can affect birth control pills. Just great. My family came into existence because Kiki couldn't keep her legs together. Damn it! Is Nathan even mine? Damn it! What about Ginger? I didn't know what to do. It was tearing me apart. Ted and Kiki had conspired to hide Kiki's SDT from me. Who had infected her? I wanted to throw up. Had she been raped? Was she still having sex? Were her warm memories of forbidden sex keeping her silent? I had turned off the sound on my phone while I was talking and didn't notice that I had missed a call from Kiki. Looking at the clock on the wall, I saw that it was almost 6:30. I was usually home by 6. The message sent an hour ago said, "Where are you?" I replied, "Sorry." I lost track of time. "I'll be there in a minute." For the 2 weeks I waited for the results of my secret DNA test, everything was different. Fortunately, I am the biological father of Nathan and Ginger. During those 2 weeks, I learned about the strange divorce laws that apply to men. No fault? Seriously? She's the one at fault. She cheated on me and I look like a fool. Considering that Kiki had always lied and hidden the truth, I wasn't going to waste my time trying to find out what really happened. I became withdrawn and moody. Even if I didn't file for divorce, Kiki could do it at any time, and I would still only be a weekend father to Nathan and Ginger. My depression worsened, sucking the life out of me. My boss sent me to HR to make an appointment with a psychologist. Did I open up to the psychologist? Not really. I just told him that my wife had cheated on me, and I didn't want to lose my children. His response? Medication. It helped a little, but it clearly wasn't enough. Call me weak, but keeping her around was much cheaper. My depression lasted for months. The only refuge I had was the time I spent with my kids, and that was the only reason I stayed in the marriage. Kiki didn't pressure me, but our relationship changed. I stopped trying. Voluntary overtime became a thing of the past. Instead, I became a coach, an assistant coach, and my kid's biggest fan to fill my free time. My desire to be a full-time father to my kids, not some stranger who showed up every other week, ruled my life. When the burden of coaching 2 kids became too much, I cut my work week down to the minimum required to keep my health insurance. This allowed me to increase my coaching responsibilities. Kiki didn't like the reduction in income. I ignored her complaints. We managed to make ends meet, but we couldn't save any money for a rainy day. Kiki would sometimes ask me if everything was okay, and I would lie and say that everything was fine. She knew that something had changed in our relationship, but neither of us wanted to talk about it. Of course, Kiki could have left me at any time, but she didn't, even though it was obvious that we were no longer the loving couple we used to be. Present day. Today, the barbecue seemed less fun. The girls had returned, but Jill and Kiki were still missing. When only a few guests remained, I went to look for them. It turned out that Jill and Kiki had locked themselves in the bedroom. I asked Ben to tell them that I was going home. Ben told me, "Jill says Kiki is staying the night. She also said some very unflattering things about you. What's going on, man?" Kiki's past caught up with her tonight. It really shook her up. I was pretty drunk and probably shouldn't have said anything. Well, now the secret's out. Good party, Ben, I'm leaving. Don't worry, I won't drive. In reality, I wasn't that drunk. And surprisingly, I didn't feel guilty about what I had done. 10 years ago, my soul was torn to pieces, but I had come to terms with my life and my marriage. I guess Kiki is going through what I once went through. Both kids were home and buried in their phones. They grumbled in response to my greeting. Eventually, they all went to their rooms. When dawn broke, I was alone in bed. There was no sign that Kiki had come home. The first dose of THC gummies hadn't kicked in either. Jill left me a message. "You're a real jerk. Kiki will be back after lunch." With 2 active children, I had nothing to worry about. They had their own hobbies. A day off meant they could spend time with their friends. Just as he was about to leave the house, Nathan finally noticed that Kiki was gone. Where's Mom? She's at Jill's. We had a little fight. She'll be back soon. He just shrugged, as if it didn't matter, probably because I pretended it didn't matter. The gutters needed cleaning, so I got busy with that to keep myself occupied. I was picking up trash when Kiki came home around 2 p.m., looking a little disheveled. "You bastard!" she yelled, slamming the door. Then there were sounds of breaking glass, screaming, cursing, and insults. I decided it would be best to spend the night in a motel, and I left. Later, Nathan texted me. "What the hell happened?" "Mom is freaking out." "Where are you?" "I'm at a motel. Why don't you find your sister and join me?" 30 minutes later, Nathan and Ginger plopped down on the couch. I briefly told them what had happened, then took Ginger into a separate room. On Sunday morning, the three of us found Kiki unconscious on the kitchen floor. She reeked of alcohol. Nathan had to climb into the house through a basement window because all the doors were locked. There were broken plates, glasses, and everything else that could be broken scattered everywhere. I touched her where it hurt. Nathan and I decided to stay at the motel. Ginger preferred to spend the day with my parents, so we took her there and bought ice cream on the way. During dinner, Ginger wrote, "Mom apologized for trashing the apartment." "I haven't heard from her." "It sounds like she's not going to talk to you. I think she's staying at her parents' house tonight." "I'm staying at the motel again. Nathan is with me. If you're passing by the house, let me know if she's not there." "I'm staying here. See you soon." On Monday, we decided that Kiki was gone and went back home. I hired cleaners to tidy up. The kids were smart enough to put off the deeper questions for later. Kiki didn't show up until the following weekend. She talked to Ginger. She talked to Nathan. She gave me murderous looks. I locked myself in my office. There was no spare room in the house, so Kiki and I slept in the same bed. But that doesn't convey how cold it was in that room. A couple of weeks later, Kiki was waiting for me when I got home. I was most afraid that she was armed. I was wrong. "How could you?" was her first question. "You did this to me." "I'm sorry. I was young and stupid. Uncle Ted lectured me. I wanted to die." "Yeah, well, 10 years later, I wanted to die. I stayed for the kids. I expect you to swallow this and do the same." "It was just once." "Kiki, I can't believe it was just once. You lied and schemed to keep me from finding out. Why? Was it so exciting that you couldn't forget about it? As far as I understand, you may still be doing it." "No, that's not true. I've tried to be the best wife in the world for the last 17 years. Except that you weren't honest with me. Would you still have cheated on me if you hadn't contracted a sexually transmitted disease?" "No, it was just once. You went diving and I smoked marijuana with my friends on the beach. I was high, and it all happened so fast. I was so stupid. I took dozens of showers, trying to wash away my betrayal. You have to believe me, it was the only time." I stood there silently, unable to continue the conversation. After a minute, Kiki whispered, "So what now?" "I'm in a situation I never thought I'd be in. It's too late to do the right thing now. Were you ever going to tell me?" "After Tata died, no one but me knew about the STD. When you got your medical records, you were healthy, so I thought it was all forgotten. There was no reason to tell you. We lived as husband and wife, and had 2 wonderful children. We had a family because your promiscuous lifestyle made birth control pills useless. I found out from your medical records. It took me 6 months to finally decide to look at them. You're just bringing back the pain I felt 10 years ago. I'm going for a walk. Ryan, please stay home so we can talk." "Oh, now you want to talk. Not now. I might say something I can't take back. Leave me alone. Just let me walk around the neighborhood. I'll be back soon." Our conversations didn't amount to much. Several weeks passed before Kiki and I resumed the sexual relationship that we both seemed to need. Thus began our mutually beneficial sexual relationship, although without love. Things weren't the same at home. I made it clear to Kiki that I would stay until Ginger left for college, and that was all I could promise. We did everything a family does, but I didn't hold her hand or hug her in public. Life went on more or less as it had for the past 10 years. Kiki and I were friends with benefits. Although we had sex, her years of deception killed the romance in our relationship. The children thought I was being unreasonable toward their mother. I just couldn't accept her dishonesty. My relationship with both of them suffered. We stopped going to barbecues with the other parents. It seemed that my comments had made me an outcast, and the women began to treat Kiki with caution. Sometimes Kiki would go away for the weekend with friends if the kids didn't have any activities. A month before Nathan left for college, Kiki decided to announce her intentions. She sent a text message to Ginger, Nathan, and me. "Family meeting when everyone gets home tonight. Nathan, Ginger, your father and I have grown apart, and I'm leaving this marriage when Ginger goes to college in 2 years. Believe me when I say that you have nothing to do with our problem. If anything, you've helped us hold on this long." No matter how hard I tried to explain my point of view to the children, nothing worked. Although not a word of rudeness was spoken, our family was falling apart. After Kiki's announcement, I felt a heavy weight lifted off my shoulders. We had 2 years to work out the details, and the divorce was finalized, approved by the court, and scheduled to take effect shortly after Ginger left for college. Kiki and I visited Nathan at school. We had family parties. Once, Kiki and I even drove to the coast to soak up the sun and enjoy the sand without the kids. We wondered if there was still a chance to save our marriage. But there wasn't. It was like a scene from a melodrama. Crying parents seeing their youngest daughter off to college, where she would be a freshman. Ginger begged Kiki, "Please. I've made my decision. This is how it has to be." "I'm sorry," her mother replied. After a platonic hug from Ginger, I got back in the car alone. Kiki stayed with Ginger until she stopped crying. They talked, cried, and then talked some more. I listened to a preseason football game on the radio. Kiki and I didn't stop on the way home. We hardly spoke. When I put my keys on the kitchen table, Kiki went upstairs and finished packing. It was sad. I held back my tears. She pushed me away, unwilling to face the problem honestly. I pushed her and the kids away because I couldn't forgive and forget. As much as I missed her, I needed to start a new chapter in my life. We started our life together like a fireball, and now all that's left is smoke. Why do people who supposedly love each other treat each other this way? Maybe they love themselves more? We both made the same mistake. She didn't trust me enough to talk about it, and I didn't trust her enough to talk about it. How stupid and stubborn. We were both afraid of losing what we valued, and in the end, we lost it. It took me several weeks to finish moving and get the house ready to sell. It was bought by a couple with 2 small children. I hope they have a better life than we did. Kiki found someone much sooner than I did. That's not surprising, since I wasn't interested in a new serious relationship. I'm glad that my new girlfriends invite me over to scratch the itch sometimes. I can go back anytime because I know there are many people who want to love and be loved. The decision is mine, and loneliness is a compelling argument. I would like to say that my children are doing well, but I am still a bad person who broke up a family. Would I do things differently if I could go back in time? I would like to think so, because I stayed for the children, and they drifted away from me.